Now, we have the cohort section, whereby it's going to last for maybe 3 months. Let's go to data analytics course, as you always do. So this course is going to last for like 12 weeks, which is 3 months. So yes, so we have, this one is like a sort of group classes, whereby we have students that enroll into these courses and they start meeting with their teachers for 1 hour 50 minutes. Aside from that, we have DOYENIFY Access. With DOYENIFY Access, this is like a mentorship program that is customized basically for you. So if you want to go private with your teacher, yes, we have this kind of package too. So whereby you can like, okay, I want to go private with my teacher for 1 month, and you subscribe to the package. So, and you can see Mr. Olumide is also there to guide you all along in case you would like to go private for data analytics courses. So yeah, so we have that kind of package for private, like, oh, I just want this teacher to take me through and guide me until I'm able to get a job, until I'm successful, you know what I'm saying. So we have that kind of package as well. So it depends on your choice what you would like to do. So that's just the addition I want to add. Thank you. I'm stopping my screen now. So
Thank
over
you
to
very
Tolu.
much, Mr. Gwenga, CEO of DOYENIFY, for that brief, information about our courses and what it entails. So please feel free to browse through the website and locate the course of your choice. Now, quickly, we are going to move to the next speaker. I believe Mr. Olumayowa should be ready for us now. You can unmute yourself, sir.
Yeah, I am ready.
Perfect. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, so I'll have to start from the since a bunch of people just joined again and I really didn't finish what I was saying earlier. So my name is Olumayowa Taiwo. I am a DevOps engineer. And like I said earlier, I have a background in normal software development, writing code for hardware. At some point, I was writing some code for operating systems like Android, iOS, and things like that. Not the app development side, but from the operating development side, like writing packages for OS, camera drivers, and things like that. So, yeah. Presently, I've been in DevOps for over 5 years, and my main stack has been AWS, Kubernetes, infrastructure as code. What else? And a bunch of other, I don't want to keep mentioning tools right now. There are like a whole lot of them, and a lot are released literally every week. So that's going to be a waste of time. Let me briefly explain what DevOps is. DevOps basically is taking applications, code, and whatever solutions that developers, or not just developers, you can have people like QAs, test automation, security, different aspects of the business. So whatever products they come up with or which they write or whatever tools they need, DevOps are the ones that make them available. DevOps are the ones that make them reliable, and whichever outages are going to occur or whichever issues are going to occur in the use of such software or tools, DevOps are the ones that make sure they don't occur. So ideally, DevOps is just like, okay, the solution is available. How does it get used? How does it stay there? How do we have zero problems and things like that? So I'm trying to explain as simple as possible. I don't want to go into tech terms because I know there are people here that have like several years of experience and there are people that are just coming into it. So forgive me, bosses and OGs of coding and things like that, if my explanation is too elementary. So the package we are trying to deliver right now in DOYENIFY is not just a one size fits all, because there have been more or less like, should I say, surveys that have been run in times past, and everybody's coming from a different aspect. Everybody's coming from a different background. For example, some people are like data engineers that want to cross into DevOps. Some are software engineers. Some are data engineers are different from database engineers. Some are networking engineers, and some are even security. So it's not like, okay, this is just an entry point and everyone that comes in becomes a guru in so and so period. No, the kind of package we are trying to deliver to people right now is like different aspects for different people depending on your background. So there is a particular one where it's like the fundamentals, the basics. DevOps as it is a very broad. It's very, very broad. For example, when Mr. Olumide was talking earlier, a lot of things he was talking about, things like Airtable, data cleaning and everything. I still did data cleaning just last week, and I'm a DevOps engineer. I did what's it called? Automated testing. Very recently, DAST, SEST, IAST as a DevOps engineer. So it's kind of very broad. So you get to touch a lot of things. It seems scary because it's ideally they tell you when you're getting into DevOps, it's not really an entry level affair. You have to have an idea about an aspect of IT before you get in. But I would still tell you you can start from scratch as far as you listen to what you have been taught and you do it as you are inquisitive, you are diligent. It's not about asking for, okay, do 5 hours every day or do 2 hours every day. I tell people it's as simple as 30 minutes every day, but make sure the 30 minutes counts and whatever you're doing is kind of, it makes sense. You're not deceiving yourself. So I don't want to keep talking about a lot of things. I just want to I'll share my screen, and I'm not sharing slides anyway. I'm sharing like a full environment, which I started deploying when this meeting started. It's done already now, so it can be accessed. So I'll drop an address in the chats. Anyone that wants to visit can visit. And I just want to walk my way around different aspects of DevOps while you are checking out the environment. Hold on, give me 1 second.
Okay, you want to share your screen, right?
I'll share my screen very soon, but before I share my screen, you can visit the website I just posted in the chat right now.
Okay.
I just deployed it now. So then can you give me screen sharing privileges?
Yes, I think you have.
Okay. Oh, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, okay. So this is an example website, which is ideally, you can go around through it and see a bunch of stuff. It's in DevOps, we call it like a microservices deployment. It's like distributed systems and things like that. So it's like a normal shopping website, e-commerce or whatever. For example, let's say I click on sunglasses right now. You can do it on your screen too, and it's going to work. But please, I beg you, don't input any credit card details because it's going to take your money. And yeah, so you can see the details of the item. You can add to cart, or you can just place what's it called? Yeah, on your carts right here. The item is display. Okay, so let's say place order or something. Yeah, continue shopping. So ideally, this is just a test. And the reason I'm showing you this is software which is on my PC. For example, it's right here. This is the code. Don't worry about all this. This is Terraform. It's kind of a little advanced, but I'm just showing you kind of how it is and how I deploy and things like that. Ideally, in this particular deployment here, we have different aspects. For example, this is a file called deployment, and this deployment, this kind of specifies, okay, let's say the front end, which we are viewing right now, this is the front end right here. So the code for the front end is just somewhere. Yeah, so this is the code from just this line, from like line 294 to line, let's say, I'm not going into a lot of details, but ideally the way this particular deployment works is it uses something we call Docker, which is one of the things that we are going to teach. There's Docker, there's Kubernetes. Docker is like an operating system. I don't want to go into too many details, but it's something we call abstraction, where you don't really have to know how the intricacies kind of work, but it's a service that is there which you can leverage and just use to build applications on, or to package your applications and make them deliverable. So then from there, you go into things like networking. Networking basically is, okay, how do you access the particular deployment or the service or whatever? Something I'll talk about in deployment here is ingress. I'm sorry, this is pretty advanced, but just bear with me. It's kind of me trying to point out different aspects of DevOps and how things work and everything. So this is an ingress controller here, which tells you, okay, this particular address, when you click on it, it takes you to this particular page. For example, the front end right now, this is, okay, we are saying app.sunday@google.com. And right here in my code, you can see there's this line that is hosts, and there's this right here. So this is app. The var.domain is something we call like variables. For those that do software engineering already or have done anything software related so far, you can declare variables and you can pass them into your code. Right here is the variable for the domain.com, which is just here. You can see the sunday@google.com here, which is passed into the ingress controller. Then from there, we are saying, okay, this website is right here. Where exactly do I deploy it to that we can visit it right here, right now? That's where something like Amazon Web Services comes in. Okay, let me go straight into my console. Yeah, this is my console for Amazon Web Services. This is my user right here on the main account itself. And it's not just that, okay, I just deployed it into anywhere on the console. There's a service we call Elastic Kubernetes Service, which is one of the tools we are going to learn in a course like this. And it's somewhere right here. This is the cluster. Inside this cluster is where all these applications I deployed are. The cluster is a collection of machines. Each machine is like a computer, and each computer runs an operating system. In this case, it runs Linux. The way we run Ubuntu, the way we run Windows on our PCs and Mac, we run Mac OS and things like that. This one runs Ubuntu, which is a Linux distribution. And on these machines are where this particular website, which I deployed, that's exactly where they are. For example, let's say right now, this message right here at the top of the page, I want to replace it. This is just to show that it's not just me showing you maybe someone else's work or something. I could replace this right now, and in a couple of minutes, it's going to change. So just give me. Yeah. So let me say, okay. Yeah, so let's say I do this right now. I just run, sorry, once again, all these codes I'm running are kind of pretty advanced. When people take the course, let's say in 12 to 18 weeks, at least they'll understand a bunch of things I'm doing, but just bear with me for the meantime. I'm just doing this to show a bunch of things which I'm going to explain as I'm talking. So let's say I run Terraform app. Apply. Let's leave this for now and let's go to something else. But I'm going to show you that this message right here at the top is going to change to what I just changed it to, but let's leave that for now. So back to DevOps engineering itself. I said it's kind of a pretty wide aspect, and I explained that it's like the will I say the bridge between developers and operations. DevOps basically means developer operations. Whatever you're going to do is to make the life of the developer easier. You're going to make their products usable. You're going to make them reliable. You're going to make them available to the people that need the products, to consumers and things like that. For example, for this website right now, after writing the code, people can just visit here. They don't need to know the things that went into it. Even the developer does not need to know, okay, this was what they had to do to make this thing the way it is or make it available. But the fact is, okay, the products I wrote and the software I wrote, is it deployed? Can the people that need it, can they use it? The information on it, is it reliable? And just things like that. So DevOps comprises of things like networking, operating systems, coding. I'm sure some people are kind of surprised to hear that, but you are going to write some code too, although not as much as developers. And your code is going to be like tailored towards a particular aspect. For example, things like scripting. Once you know Python already, to get into DevOps gets easier. Once you know things like SQL, like the data scientist talked about earlier, you can transform it into some aspects of DevOps. I'm not saying once you know SQL, you know everything about DevOps. Once you know networking already, an aspect of DevOps is solved. Security and a bunch of other things. It's a steep slope. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to sugarcoat people into it. It gets how do I put it? It gets stressful sometimes. You have to know what the developer knows, then you have to know what the operations people what they know. But still, I would say you can ease into it. It's not a, what will I say, kind of get rich quick scheme. I'm not talking about riches in this kind of aspect. I'm talking about things like, it's not like, okay, once you get into it, you know everything at once. No, you have to start somewhere with the basics. For example, let's say you deploy a single page website on something like S3, which you can do in 2 hours, even if you have absolutely no knowledge of DevOps before you start it. It can be as simple as just writing HTML and CSS and deploying it in your GitHub pages, or using things like Netlify or DigitalOcean or different kind of platforms out there. So it's a steep slope, but then it's pretty interesting. It's pretty cool. And yeah, so back to the page. What I changed the other time, you can see the message has changed to follow along on DOYENIFY.com and things like that. So this particular thing I did right now is meant to be something automated, for example. But then I just did it manually to show you that, okay, to change what I changed here, I didn't have to do so much. All the work I had done writing all this code, we call this Terraform script. It's written in Groovy, but don't worry about that for now. All the work I've done here makes it so easy for me to make changes to the deployments to the websites anytime I want to make changes to it. So that's one of the beauty of DevOps. It's like simplifying all the aspects which would have normally been so tedious to write. So that's the way it is. Then let me go to structure. Ideally, I told you it's something that is more or less like, okay, you're crossing from another aspect of IT into it. And I also told you that you can start from the scratch. So if you are someone who is starting from the scratch, I would recommend going through the essentials, like the basics. The basics will take you through things like, okay, what's Git? I know a lot of people here know what Git is, but for those that don't know, Git is like it's a continuous integration system. It's like it does things like version control. When you write your code and you want to store them, make them available, or let's say you want to share them across teams or teams of people, then you push them to something that a Git platform, let's say it's GitHub or GitLab, Bitbucket. There are a lot of them out there, but the most popular one is GitHub. So you create a repository on GitHub, you connect to it from your local repository, which there are a whole lot of tutorials on how to create it, and it's something you're going to learn in the course itself. Then you push it there. So anyone who needs your code can go see it. Literally everyone in IT uses some form of version control, and mostly they use Git because Git is the most popular. Git is the most easy to use right now. So essentials, you learn things like Git, you learn things like operating systems, and in operating systems, you learn things like Windows, Linux. Those are the two you are going to learn. most of us use Windows already, and a lot of us use some form of Linux because Linux is based on Unix. Mac OS runs Unix. So if you use your Mac OS already and you've used things like the terminal on Mac OS, then definitely you've used some form of Linux before. So you learn Windows and you learn Linux. Then you learn networking. The networking you're going to learn is the basics. I'm not going to tell you, okay, you have to configure firewalls or you have to configure F5 load balancers and things like that. No. It's like, okay, what happens when you put an address into your your browser and you click enter? What happens within that time and when the page loads? So you're going to understand how things like that come about, and a bunch of little other things like addressing systems, domain name systems, route tables, the fundamentals. CIDR blocks might be too advanced, but at least you'll have an idea of what CIDR blocks are and things like that. Then from there, you go to databases. The databases you're going to learn, I won't tell you are going to learn MySQL, NoSQL, all this, what's it called? Key value pair databases and things like that, Redis, no. But at least, okay, how do we connect to databases? How do we make them available? How do we provision them? The basics. Then from there, okay, maybe you start with Docker. Docker is just like, instead of having a lot of Linux machines, you can virtualize them. For example, on a single Linux machine, you can have multiple Docker containers on them instead of just having just one machine, which is Docker containers. It's like abstracting machines themselves. So instead of having to have like a whole lot of applications, you can just, for just that single application you want to deploy, you can just push it into a Docker container, and that container is like a Linux environment that runs just that particular application you put on it. So you learn how that comes about. You provision simple Docker containers, might be as simple as hello world. Then from your laptop, there's something we call port forwarding. You can make it available to someone else that is like at the other side of the world and they can visit it. So then from there, you learn basic scripting too. Like, okay, what does CD do? What does things like make directory, mkdir? You won't go into like crazy details like netstat and all those things. That's later after you've known at least some really cool stuff about networking and things about system administration and a bunch of stuff like that. Then
Thank
you'll
you
go
very
to,
much, Mr. Olumayowa. Sorry to interrupt you. I see that we have very little time now, and there is a lot, that can be said about DevOps. And I think it's even starting to get, a little bit technical. But
I'm just trying to prepare people. I don't want to sell a white donkey to people and stuff. So at least you know what you're getting into, and you could just pick an aspect and that's it. You don't have to know everything. So
yeah. But I have one question. I believe you are already rounding up already.
yes.
So I will just say, anyone that wants to ask any question, please write it in the chat, and we'll read it out for Mr. Olumayowa. But I have one question for you.
Okay.
So it sounds like DevOps does like some coding, as I can see on the screen. You are doing coding as well, and then you were able to kind of like develop something which we could see on the front end. So I don't know. I want to ask, what's the difference between like a DevOps engineer and a software developer, a full stack developer?
Okay. As funny as it may sound, as a DevOps engineer, you understand literally everything a full stack engineer does. So it's not that you have to write the code, but it's the fact that once you write the code, you can read it and understand what it does. And then you could do whatever you want to do to make it available to the consumers that are going to access the application that code is for. But you don't need to be that way when you start. You can just be on the side of, let's say, deployment or build and release and things like that. But eventually, the more senior you get, you really have to understand what your developers are doing so that you'll be able to optimize their code and deploy and make them available and secure them too. Yeah. So yeah, necessarily not a software engineer, but the fact is you will understand a lot of things that software engineers are doing. Yeah, that's my answer.
Nice. Thank you very much. I don't see any more questions on the chat. Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Olumayowa. I don't know if there was anything more you wanted to say when rounding up. Please do say, and we'll move to the next speaker.
Maybe the next webinar, at least I know with everything I've said so far, the people that are kind of interested will have more questions, and either they'll reach out to Doyenify through the portals, and whatever questions, I'll answer them and revert back.
Thank you very much, Mr. Olumayawa.